They say you never really know someone until money's involved. In my case, it took losing my husband Michael and inheriting his classic car collection to see my in-laws' true colors. I'm Emily, and at 35, I found myself juggling life as a widow, a mother to a chronically ill child, and the unexpected owner of 12 meticulously restored classic cars that my husband had lovingly collected over the years. Michael's passion for automobiles was legendary in our small town of Cedar Grove. Each car in his collection had a story, from the 1965 Mustang he restored with his father as a teenager to the rare 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air he bought the day our son Nathan was born. "This is Nathan's college fund," he'd joke, polishing the Bel Air's chrome trim until it gleamed. Or his first house, depending on how the market goes. We'd laugh, but Michael was always thinking ahead, planning for our future, for Nathan's future. Nathan was born with cystic fibrosis. The diagnosis came when he was 6 months old, turning our world upside down. Michael's parents, Robert and Diana, ran a successful construction company in town, and they helped us initially with the mounting medical bills. But Michael was proud and determined to handle things on his own. He threw himself into his work as an investment banker, saved aggressively, and built his car collection not just as a hobby, but as a safety net for our family. Classic cars appreciate better than stock sometimes, he'd tell me, showing me the latest market valuations, and they're a lot more fun to look at. The accident happened on a rainy Tuesday evening. Michael was driving home from a late meeting when a drunk driver crossed the median. He died instantly, they told me, but that knowledge brought little comfort. One moment I was texting him about what he wanted for dinner. The next I was planning his funeral. Robert and Diana stepped in immediately, taking charge of the funeral arrangements while I sat in a daze, holding Nathan's hand as he struggled to understand why Daddy wasn't coming home. They were a constant presence in those first few weeks, bringing food, handling paperwork, watching Nathan when I needed to meet with lawyers. "We're family," Diana would say, smoothing my hair like I was a child. "We take care of our own." The reading of the will brought the first crack in their supportive facade. Michael had left everything to me, the house, his investments, and most significantly, his entire car collection. Robert's face darkened when the lawyer read that part. "Those cars were supposed to stay in the family," he muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Michael and I restored that Mustang together. I ignored the comment, too grief-stricken to engage. But looking back, that was the moment everything began to change. The construction company started struggling about 3 months after Michael's death. The economy was down, contracts were drying up, and Robert and Diana's comfortable lifestyle began showing signs of strain. Their visits became more frequent, but the atmosphere had shifted. They spent more time in Michael's garage than with Nathan and me. "These cars just sitting here, it's not what Michael would have wanted," Robert would say, running his hand along the Mustang's hood. "He'd want them being driven, appreciated." "Nathan's medical bills must be overwhelming," Diana would add, her voice dripping with concern that felt increasingly artificial. "You know, we could help you sell a few of these. It would be such a weight off your shoulders." I deflect these suggestions, remembering Michael's pride in his collection, his plans for our son's future, but their hints grew more insistent, especially after Nathan's latest hospitalization required specialized treatments not fully covered by insurance. "Emily, be reasonable." Robert cornered me one evening after bringing Nathan home from a doctor's appointment. "The company's facing some temporary setbacks. We need capital to weather this storm. These cars are just gathering dust while you struggle with medical bills. It doesn't make sense." "The cars are Nathan's inheritance," I said firmly. Michael was clear about that. Diana's perfectly maintained smile cracked slightly. "Nathan's inheritance? Emily dear, be practical. With his condition, well, let's just say long-term planning might not be the best use of resources right now." The words hit me like a physical blow. Did my mother-in-law just imply what I thought she did? Before I could respond, Robert jumped in. "What Diana means is we need to think about the present. The company employs half the town. If we go under, a lot of families will suffer. Surely Michael would want to prevent that." I looked at them, these people who'd been my second family for over a decade, and suddenly saw strangers. "Get out," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Get out of my house." "Emily, don't be dramatic." Diana reached for my arm. "We're just trying to help. Nathan's medical bills are clearly a burden on you. And? A burden? I cut her off, my voice rising. My son is not a burden. He is your grandson. And you just suggested. I couldn't even finish the sentence. They left, but not before Robert delivered a final threat. Think carefully about this, Emily. You're not the only one who lost Michael. We have rights too. Don't make us take legal action. That night, after putting Nathan to bed, I sat in Michael's garage surrounded by his beloved cars. Each one held memories. Michael teaching me to drive stick in the Mustang, our first date in the Thunderbird, bringing Nathan home from the hospital in the Bel Air. As I ran my hand along the Mustang's smooth finish, something clicked in my memory. Michael's voice. Always keep copies of everything, Em, especially the important stuff. He'd been obsessive about documentation, keeping detailed records of every car's restoration, every business transaction, every important paper. I spent the next 3 hours going through his home office, searching through meticulously organized files until I found what I was looking for. My hands trembled as I read the documents, pieces falling into place like a complex puzzle. The construction company wasn't just struggling, it was on the verge of collapse. But more importantly, buried in the incorporation papers was a detail that Robert and Diana had conveniently forgotten to mention. Michael owned 51% of the company, and now I did. The next morning, I called in sick to work and made 2 appointments, one with Michael's lawyer, James Patterson, and another with his old friend Tom Reynolds, who happened to be a forensic accountant. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with before confronting Robert and Diana. Let me get this straight, James said, adjusting his reading glasses as he reviewed the documents I found. Michael bought majority ownership in his parents' company 5 years ago when they were facing bankruptcy. I nodded, remembering how proud Michael had been to help his parents while ensuring the company's survival. He never told them about the ownership structure, said it would hurt their pride too much. They thought he just arranged a private loan through his investment contacts. James whistled low. Well, Mrs. Bennett, as Michael's heir, you now own 51% of Bennett Construction. And these threats from Robert about legal action? He shook his head. They don't have a leg to stand on. Tom's findings were even more revealing. Emily, they've been cooking the books, he said, spreading spreadsheets across his desk. The company isn't just struggling. They've been siphoning money into personal accounts for years. If this gets reported to the IRS, I spent the next week gathering evidence, making copies, and preparing for what I knew would be an explosive confrontation. Through it all, I kept thinking about Nathan, about Michael, about the future we planned together. My in-laws weren't making things easier. They'd started spreading rumors around town about my mental state since Michael's death, suggesting I was making irrational decisions about the family business. Some old family friends stopped calling. Even at Nathan's school, I noticed other parents giving me concerned looks. Mommy, Nathan asked one evening as I helped him with his breathing treatments, why don't Grandma and Grandpa come visit anymore? Are they mad at us? I held him close, breathing in the sweet scent of his hair. No, sweetheart. They're just confused right now. But everything's going to be okay. I promise. The annual shareholders meeting of Bennett Construction was scheduled for the following Friday. Robert and Diana had been pushing me to sign over proxy rights for Michael's shares, claiming I was too emotionally fragile to participate. Instead, I spent hours preparing with James and Tom, understanding every detail of what I was about to do. The morning of the meeting, I dressed carefully in Michael's favorite blue suit of mine, the one he said made me look like a CEO. I dropped Nathan off at Sarah and Jim's house, my closest friends who'd stood by me through everything, and drove to the company headquarters. The conference room was packed with board members, senior employees, and various shareholders. Robert and Diana sat at the head of the table, looking confident and composed. They barely acknowledged my presence when I walked in with James at my side. Before we begin, Robert announced, shuffling some papers, I want to address the elephant in the room. Our beloved son Michael's passing has left us all grieving, but we must think of the company's future. His widow, Emily, holds some shares but has expressed uncertainty about her role. We believe it's in everyone's best interest if. Actually, I cut in, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. I'd like to say something first. Diana's patronizing smile appeared. Dear, perhaps this isn't the best time. These meetings can be quite complex and, as the majority shareholder of Bennett Construction, I continued, raising my voice slightly. I think this is exactly the right time. The room went silent. Robert's face turned an interesting shade of purple. What did you say? James started distributing copies of the ownership documents. Mrs. Bennett owns 51% of this company, he explained calmly. Has owned it since her husband's death, actually, and she has some concerns about recent management decisions. Tom stepped forward next, presenting his findings about the financial irregularities. With each revelation, Robert and Diana seemed to shrink in their chairs. Their carefully constructed facade was crumbling in front of everyone. This is preposterous. Robert finally exploded, standing up so violently his chair toppled backward. Michael would never. Michael did. I interrupted, pulling out one final document, a letter he'd written to his parents, never sent, explaining his decision to buy majority ownership. He loved you both so much he couldn't bear to see you lose everything. So he saved the company quietly, asking nothing in return except that you run it honestly. Diana was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Emily, please, we can explain. Explain what? I asked, my voice breaking slightly. How you tried to manipulate me into selling Michael's cars? How you implied my son was a burden? How you spread rumors about my mental health when I wouldn't do what you wanted? The board members were whispering among themselves, looking scandalized. Several longtime employees were shaking their heads in disgust. As of this moment, I announced, standing straight and channeling every ounce of strength I had, you're both suspended from your positions pending a full audit. The board will appoint an interim CEO, and all financial decisions will require majority shareholder approval, meaning mine. You can't do this, Robert shouted. We built this company. And Michael saved it, I replied quietly. The same man whose son you called a burden. The same man whose legacy you tried to steal. They left the meeting in disgrace, but it wasn't the end. Over the next few weeks, they tried everything, tearful apologies, threats, attempts to rally other family members against me. But the evidence was too clear, the betrayal too complete. The audit revealed years of financial mismanagement. Rather than press charges, I offered them a deal, retirement with a modest pension, provided they signed ironclad agreements never to contest my ownership or approach Nathan about his inheritance. 6 months later, Bennett Construction is thriving under new management. I've taken a more active role in the company, learning the business Michael believed in enough to save. The classic car collection remains intact, appreciated in value, waiting for Nathan's future. Last weekend, Nathan and I took the Mustang for a drive. His first time in one of Daddy's special cars. As we cruised along the coast, him chattering excitedly about each gauge and button, I felt Michael's presence so strongly it brought tears to my eyes. Mom, Nathan asked, do you think Dad would be proud of us? I looked at my son, my miracle boy who fights every day with a smile on his face, and thought about everything we'd overcome together. Yes, sweetheart, I said, squeezing his hand. Dad would be very proud. Some of Michael's relatives still think I was too harsh with his parents. They don't understand that this was never about money or power, or even revenge. It was about protecting what Michael worked so hard to build. It was about standing up for our son. It was about honoring the love of a man who always did the right thing, even when it was hard, even when it hurt. The cars in our garage aren't just vehicles anymore. They're reminders that sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't what's in the bank. It's the strength to stand up for what's right, the courage to protect what matters, and the wisdom to know the difference between justice and revenge. As for Robert and Diana, I heard they moved to Florida last month. Sometimes I think about sending them pictures of Nathan learning to work on the Mustang, just like his father did. But some bridges, once burned, are better left as ashes. The future stretches out before us like an open road, and for the first time since Michael's death, I'm not afraid to see where it leads, because I know now what he always knew, that the strongest steel is forged in fire, and the truest legacy is the one we build ourselves, one choice at a time.